Hello. So today we'll continue with the advanced macro facilities, and we will go through a next facility, which is conditional macro expansion. So it's a very frequently used mechanism. What it does is it allows us to define a single version of the source code, and that can be used to generate multiple versions of the executable code. That is, using one single framework, you can say, or one single structure for the source code, we can generate multiple types or multiple instances of that single template. Fine. And each of these instances or each of these types can be used for specific jobs, right? So single version of the source code, that is a definition, right? So every time we are defining a source code, that is a macro definition. Similarly, the executable file is nothing but the call. So whenever we are saying that it can be used to generate the multiple versions of executable, so that is nothing but the call, right? So whenever we are calling the macro, expanded code is being generated, expanded form of the macro is being generated, which is the executable form, right? So this is the conditional expansion. So a single version of the definition is given, and we can generate multiple versions of the executable. How? Using two different pseudo operations. One is AIF. The first one is AIF, and the second one is AG0 or AGO, right? The first one is AIF and the second one is AGO. So these are two macro pseudo ops. These two macro pseudo ops allow us to perform the conditional macro expansion, right? So using these two, we can actually define the different types of macro expansions. Fine. And again, since these two are pseudo operations, so these have special meaning only for the assembler, and they do not appear in the macro expansion itself, right? So with this we have already studied earlier in the previous lectures, so this we are supposed to know, right? Okay. So the AIF pseudo op is a conditional branch pseudo op. Fine. So there are two keywords here. The first one is conditional, second one is branch. So that means if a condition is satisfied, then go to a statement that is indicated by the label value, right? Else continue with the next instruction. So the syntax for AIF is given as AIF followed by the condition within first brackets followed by a label. Now, as we have already studied in some previous lectures, that label is nothing but a name that we can set for a particular instruction set at a memory location, right? So a label is nothing but a name for an instruction at a memory location, right? So again, the syntax says AIF, which is nothing but the pseudo op itself, followed by the condition, which is mentioned within first brackets, followed by the label of an instruction, right? So how does this work? If this condition is satisfied, that is, if the condition is true, then the execution will move to the instruction which is indicated by this label. Fine. If this condition is true, the execution will move or will jump or will go to the instruction that is indicated by this label. If the instruction if the condition is false in any case, then there is no go to or no jump required, and the sequence of instructions will be executed as it is. Fine. Right. So this is the syntax, this is the general syntax for the AIF pseudo op, and this is the explanation. So if the explanation is required, this is the general explanation of the AIF pseudo op. If a condition is satisfied, then go to the statement that is indicated by label, this label, right? Else you can continue with the next instruction. Fine. So what does the condition actually do? What is done with the condition? The instruction, it performs an arithmetic test, right? So the conditions, as we have already studied in our programming languages, can be generally of arithmetic operators, right? Equal to, equals, or greater than, less than, etc. That is logical sequences. Similarly, here we can perform arithmetic tests, and the branching occurs only if the tested condition is true. right? Branching occurs only if the tested condition is true. If it is false, then nothing special is done. We are continuing with the sequential instruction execution, right? Now what does branching mean here? What is the meaning of branching? Branching means moving the execution from the current instruction to a specific instruction mentioned elsewhere in the program, right? This is called branching, moving the execution from the current instruction to a specific instruction mentioned elsewhere in the program. So when do we branch? We branch when the condition is true, fine. And where do we move the branch to? Which specific instruction is executed? The instruction whose label we are mentioning in the AIF statement, right? So this is the meaning, or this is the understanding of how the AIF statement works. Now we will see that with a explanation, with an example. So let us have a macro definition, a sample macro definition first, and then we will try to understand what this definition is, and then we will see how to use this definition to generate different forms, right? So this is a very simple example. We can see that it starts with macro, it ends with ment, but there are different parts to this example which we have not seen earlier, right? There are some parts to this example which we have not seen earlier. So today we will try to go through and understand what each of these statements mean, fine. So this is the definition of the macro in general, fine. We will go through statement by statement, right? So the first statement is macro itself. So this indicates the beginning of the macro definition. This we already know from the previous lectures. So there is nothing special about this right now, fine. The next instruction contains a set of values, right? The next instruction contains a set of values, right? Excuse me. This contains a set of values. Now each of these values has a specific meaning. This vary, 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 this is nothing but the name of the macro. Right now, if we ignore this part, right, we know that this vary is the name of the macro. We have seen this in the previous lectures with different names, however, but here vary is the macro name, right? Similarly, all these four things, ampersand count, ampersand arg1, ampersand arg2, ampersand arg3, all of these four things are nothing but macro arguments, right? These are the macro arguments. So in the first instruction of the macro definition, we have had the macro name and the macro arguments, right? Next, we have something before the first instruction begins, that is ampersand arg0, right? We have something written as ampersand arg0. So this said that this is a label, right? If you go back a few lectures, you will find that we have already studied what a label is, and a label is nothing but a name for an instruction at a memory location. So this ampersand arg0 is nothing but again a dummy argument for a label name. This is nothing but a dummy argument for a label name, right? So this is a label that indicates a name for a sequence of instructions inside the macro definition, right? So this is nothing but a label. What does this do? It indicates that we are supposed to provide a name, we are supposed to use a name for a sequence of instructions in this macro definition, right? So what sequence of instructions does this name refer to? That we are going to see next. But right now, since we are using a label to denote a point at a sequence of instructions in the macro definition, we need to also define that label in the first statement of the macro definition, that is where we are defining the names and the arguments. In the same place, we are supposed to also state the dummy name for the label, right? So moving on, in the second instruction, we see that again we have the same label, right? So same label mentioned for the first instruction of the named sequence. So here at this position, this indicates that this following sequence of instructions will be indicated by this label, right? So this label will indicate this point at statement 1, fine, for the following sequence of instructions in the macro definition, right? So we could pass any name in place of ampersand arg0 that we will see during the final macro call, fine. we will find in the final macro call that we can pass any name, different names in place of ampersand arg0, right? So that will be clearer at that point of time. Fine. So moving into the instructions themselves, the first instruction says a1 comma ampersand arg1. Now this is again something we have been studying time and again. This represents what? This represents that we are supposed to add a value which is mentioned by ampersand arg1 with the content of register 1. This we already know, right? So there's nothing new or exciting about this. The next instruction is new for us, right? The next instruction says AIF within brackets ampersand count EQ 1, right? It says AIF within brackets ampersand count EQ 1 followed by .fini. Fine. So this is the whole instruction. Now if we are supposed to decode this instruction, let us do it part by part. AIF is nothing but the conditional pseudo up, right, which we have studied a few slides back. AIF is the conditional pseudo up, and as per its syntax, following the AIF keyword, we are supposed to state the condition within first brackets, right? Here the condition is this: the value specified by the argument ampersand count, is it equal to 1? Again, the value specified by the argument ampersand count, is it equal to 1? If it is equal to 1, then go to or branch to statement .fini. Then branch to the statement whose label is .fini, right? So see, if value of ampersand count is equal to 1, then go to the statement with label .fini. Now let's assume at this point of time that ampersand count during macro call has been given a value of 1, right? Let's assume that ampersand count has been given a value 1. So in that case, the execution will branch to this statement. .fini is nothing but the label, right? See, .fini is nothing but the label, and it is a label for the instruction mend or macro end, which means the macro definition has ended. There is nothing left to do. Fine. So this instruction indicates that if the value specified by the argument ampersand count is equal to 1, then we will simply move to the or jump to the end of the macro, right? So this similar type of execution will continue as long as we do not reach the mend pseudo, right? So if this condition were false, if ampersand count had a value, other than 1, let's say it was 2 or 3, then this whole statement, this whole instruction would result in false, and we would not jump to this last instruction. So we would continue with this instruction next, right? And it would go on. Fine. So I hope this part is clear. If this is not clear for you, please go back a few slides and go through the whole thing again. Try to understand. I'm sure you will get it, right? This is very simple, and it's an interesting topic. Fine. So let's see how this whole thing unfolds during a macro call. So this is our prior macro definition, right? This is the whole macro definition, and once we have defined it, let's see some sample macro call statements. Let's see some examples of macro call statements for this given definition. So the first one is AIF with 1, right? So we are going to example 1 simply. Let the macro call statement be loop 1 followed by vary 3 data 1 data 2 data 3, right? So this is the macro call statement. Fine. This is the macro call statement. Now what is the macro call statement looking like? It has the name of the macro, which is vary, right? It has the name of the macro, which is vary, followed by 4 arguments, right? What are the 4 arguments? 3 data 1 data 2 data 3. See, from the macro definition you can find that the macro definition also had 4 arguments, right? Similarly, before the macro definition we had also allocated a label. Fine. We had also allocated a label which was used to refer to a sequence of instructions in the macro definition. This label was &0. So when we are calling the macro using the macro name, we have also written this label here. We have passed a name, right? We have passed a name as simple as passing an argument, we have also passed a name for the sequence of macro instructions, right? This name in this case is nothing but loop 1. In this case, the name is nothing but loop 1. So what happens when we make this macro call? Let's go through it step by step. A simple interpretation will tell us that we are calling the macro called vary, right? And we are passing optional label as loop 1. The name we are passing is loop 1, and we are passing 4 arguments, so that ampersand count here is equal to 3, ampersand arg1 is equal to data 1, ampersand arg2 is equal to data 2, and ampersand arg3 equal to data 3, right? So we have passed 4 arguments, and each of these can be positionally correlated with the dummy argument names. Fine. Now our interpretation for the whole sequence of instructions in the macro definition will give us something like this. So for this interpretation we will consider only these set of instructions, because this is the actual macro definition. These are the instructions contained in the macro definition, right? So statement 1 says loop 1. Why loop 1? Because first statement had the name ampersand arg0 associated with it, right? So statement 1 is loop 1 followed by a1 data 1. This is completely fine. The statement 1 in the macro definition had ampersand arg0, which has been now replaced by loop 1 during macro call. We have given this as the name or the label, right? And the main instruction was a1 ampersand arg1. So the main instruction in our case is a1 data 1, because ampersand arg1 has been replaced by data 1 during macro call, right? So this is the first instruction, and this is completely fine. Now the second instruction says AIF ampersand count eq1 dot FINI. So if we are trying to interpret it, that simply means if the value of count, which in this case is equal to 3, because we have passed 3 to count during macro call. So if the value of count is equal to 1, then go to dot FINI. Again, if the value of ampersand count, which in this case is 3, if that value was supposed to be equal to 1, then we would go to the statement dot FINI. Now in this particular case, this is false, because 3 is not equal to 1, right? So nothing will happen. We won't branch to dot FINI. We won't do that. We will move on to the next instruction in a sequential order, right? And the next instruction says nothing but a2 data 2, because a2 ampersand arg2 can be simply replaced by data 2. So the next instruction says a2 data 2. After that, again we have another AIF statement which says AIF ampersand count eq2 dot FINI. So that can be again interpreted as if the value of count is equal to 2, then go to dot FINI. But in this case again the value of count has not changed. We have passed the value 3 to it, right? We have passed the value 3 to it. So 3 is not equal to 2 again, right? So this whole thing is again false. So there is no question of branching anywhere. We are not going to branch to the last statement which has a label dot FINI. We are not going to do that, because the condition is false. There is no branching. So sequentially, in a sequential order, we are moving on to the next instruction, which is A3 data 3, as data 3 has been passed in place of ampersand arg3, right? Data 3 has been passed in place of ampersand arg3. So this was the last executable instruction. After that we have simply a macro end pseudo up, which means the macro operation has ended. So in this case, what do we observe? In this case we observe that we can pass a macro name, right? There may have been some confusion previously, but right now I hope the use of this name or this label is very clear. Ampersand arg0, right? During macro call we can specify any name in this place, and this name will be used to refer to the sequence of instructions, right? Simply see, loop 1 has been mentioned here during macro call. We had already mentioned loop 1 or the positional dummy argument arg0 for the first instruction. So while interpreting, we can simply use it to refer to the first instruction, loop 1 followed by the instruction, right? Very simple thing. Anyway, So from this example, what we can conclude is that in this particular case we have the 4 arguments, right? We have the 4 positional arguments, we have passed all of them, and there was no branching, right? But there could have been branching if the value of count argument was something different. Right now in this example the value of count is 3, so we did not have to branch anywhere. Let's move on to other examples where the value of the count argument changes. Fine. Right. So this is the second example where we'll have different values for different things. So let's take another macro call statement where the label is being set as loop 2. The label for the first instruction is being passed during macro call as loop 2, right? Again that is followed by the macro name followed by the values of the arguments. Now 2 here corresponds nothing but the value of the count argument, ampersand count. Data 3 corresponds to ampersand arg1 and data 2 corresponds to ampersand arg2. Fine. This is a simple macro call statement. Again we are calling the macro called vary, and we are passing the optional label as loop 2 in this case. Fine. And we are passing 3 arguments, so that ampersand count is equal to 2, ampersand arg1 is equal to data 3, ampersand arg2 is equal to data 2, ampersand arg3 in this case is missing. Fine. Ampersand arg3 is missing. If you see, we actually have 4 arguments in the macro definition, but right now during macro call we have only passed 3 values, so each of these corresponds to a specific argument, and the 4th argument no value is passed for it, right? So a particular value for ampersand arg3 is missing. Fine. So the interpretation, if this were supposed to be a actual macro call statement, how would we interpret it? Again, the first statement is referred to by the label passed in place of arg0, which is loop 1, right? So loop 1 followed by the first instruction, which is a1 data 3. Fine. So we have the first instruction as a1 data 3, that is all well and good. In the second instruction we have an AIF statement, just like in the previous case, because we are again simply following the same macro definition, right? We are simply following the same macro definition, so there is not supposed to be any change or any difference. So in the second statement we have, if the value of count equals 1, then go to the statement whose label is .fini, right? If the value of count is equal to 1, then go to the statement which is denoted by .fini. In this case the value of count is 2. We have passed a value 2 in place of ampersand count, right? So it is false. 2 is not equal to 1, so this part is false. So we will sequentially move on to the next instruction, which is a2 data 2. We will sequentially move on to the next instruction, which is a2 data 2. Once we have come here, this is again a simple instruction, right? The next instruction says AIF ampersand count eq2 .fini. So if the value of count equals 2, then go to .fini. Now in this particular case, this is true. The value of count is 2, and that is of course equal to 2, right? So we will branch to the statement whose label is .fini. So in this case, see, once we have done executing statement 4, we will simply jump, or we will go to the statement with label .fini, because this condition in statement 4 is true. So we will simply directly move to statement 6, which says mend or macro end, right? We are skipping statement 5 which said a3 ampersand arg3. We are skipping that statement. Fine. So this is again an example. This is something remarkable which we have done. So for the same set of macro instructions, we have been able to modify, we have been able to change the way our program behaves by varying the passed arguments, by varying the value we have passed to the variable called count, by varying the number of arguments, and by varying the value passed to the variable called count during macro call, right? So in the previous case, let's make a comparative study. In the previous case we had specified count as 3, So none of these conditions were satisfied, and we had to go through the whole program sequence, right? Whole sequence of instructions. In this second example, as the value of count is 2, we did not have to go beyond statement 4, right? At statement 4 the condition is satisfied and we could simply skip to the end. So for the same macro definition, right, for the same macro definition, we now have a different expanded form. We now have a different explanation, right? A different interpretation, which could only be possible because of the way the macro argument value was passed, and because of the way the AIF statement, right, the AIF statement helps us to verify or branch on verification of a particular condition, right? So this is the main use of conditional statements in macros, right? Let's take another example, a third example. In this case again we have the same macro definition, right? In this case also we have the same macro definition, nothing has changed. What changes is the macro call statement. In the macro call statement we have something called loop 3 vary 1 data 1. In the macro call statement we have loop 3 vary 1 data 1, right? So what does this mean? We are calling the macro called vary, right? We are passing optional label as loop 3. Excuse me, this will be loop 3, not loop 1. And we are passing only 2 arguments here. See, we are passing only 2 arguments. We have place for 4 arguments, right? We can pass 4 arguments: ampersand count, ampersand arg1, ampersand arg2, ampersand arg3. But we are passing only 2 arguments, 1 and data 1. Of course, here 1 will correspond to the positional dummy argument, which is ampersand count, and data 1 will correspond to the positional dummy argument ampersand arg1, right? arg2, arg3, both of these dummy arguments are missing any particular value during the macro call, right? This is pretty evident. So again this interpretation will be a lot more simple. For the first instruction, as we have passed the name loop 3, this will again be 3. We have passed the label as loop 3, so that will be the name for the first instruction, followed by the actual instruction itself, A1 data 1. This is very simple, A1 data 1. In the second instruction we have that AIF statement, AIF ampersand count equal to 1 dot fini, right? So again the interpretation is, if the value of count equals 1, then go to the statement whose label is .fini. In this case we have passed the value of count as 1, right? In this case we have passed the count as 1. So in this case 1 is equal to 1, obviously. So we will simply branch out to the statement whose label is .fini. So see, from statement 2 we will directly branch out to statement 6 whose label is .fini, and statement 6 says mend, macro end. So we have nothing else to do, right? So this is again another form in which way we have modified the same set of source codes, same set of source instructions by different use of parameters, right? By varying the value of particular arguments and using that in combination with the branching statements or the conditional statements such as AIF. Fine. So for the same set of instructions, for the same macro definition, we have 3 different forms. In the first example we worked with all the 3 data values, data 1, data 2, data 3, right? In the second example, by varying the value of count, right, with the use of AIF statement, we simply worked as long as we required, right? We simply worked with data 3 and data 2. We did not move on to the instruction A3 ampersand arg3. No, we did not require that, so we simply eliminated it by manipulating the value of count variable, right? In the third example, similarly in the third example we simply eliminated the A2 and A3, all of these instructions, right? We simply went through the first instruction by using data 1, right? And since the value of count we had manipulated by setting it to 1, we could simply branch out to the last instruction mend. Fine. So the conditional arguments they enable us to do something specific. They enable us to make out general forms as per our requirement from the same set of macro definitions, right? So the complete example can be represented in this way, where we have a source program and an expanded program. Now again, this same thing we have been explaining in the previous slides, in the last few slides, right? This part is the macro definition, and these three are the three different macro calls. Now each of these macro calls can be expanded to have particular meanings. This first call can be expanded as loop1 is the name of the label that is passed for the first instruction in the macro definition, right? So loop1 followed by the first instruction, a1 data 1, a2 data 2, a3 data 3. This is the simplest example where there was no actual branching, right? In the second example, in the second macro call, we have not passed any parameter for ampersand arg3, and the value of count is set at 2. So in this case, the branching will bring us to loop 2 a1 data 3, a2 data 2, and beyond that we will simply branch out to the mend statement, right? So in this example, after a2 data 2, we are simply branching out to the macro end, right? So if you have any problem with that, please again go back to the previous slide for example 2 and check out what I am talking about, right? Similarly, in the last example, we have loop 3 vary 1 data 1, and that can be expanded as loop 3 a1 data 1 only, because just beyond this statement we have a AIF conditional statement which checks that the value of count is 1, and we are simply branching out to macro end, right? So there is no further execution of statements. So for the same macro definition, again for the same macro definition, using different macro calls and using the macro argument value as per our requirement, using the macro argument value as conditions for the AIF statement, we can simply generate different forms, different expanded forms of the same source program, right? So this is the general benefit of using the conditional arguments. Note that macro definitions, labels, and macro labels like .fini, these do not appear in the expanded form. These do not appear in the expanded form. Fine. Okay. So some simple notes: AIF ampersand count eq1 .fini. This directs the macro processor to end the macro call. To end the macro call, how? By mentioning .fini as the label for the MEND pseudo op. If the condition is true, then we are branching out to the mend statement, right, whose label is .fini. Fine. Conditional expansion helps in generating assembly code which is specifically suited to the parameters in the macro calls, right, which we have already seen in the previous three examples, that depending on the parameters as per our requirement, we are using the parameter values in the macro call, and that helps in generating specific assembly code, specific expanded forms, right, using the same macro definition. So any model statement is visited only under specific conditions. So if our conditions are satisfied, depending on that we can ensure that we are visiting specific statements or not, right? So this we have already seen in the few previous examples, right? So there is another pseudo op, which is the AGO pseudo op, right? Now unlike the AIF pseudo op, the AGO pseudo op is unconditional branching statement, right? It is unconditional branching. So just as we had a condition specified within first brackets in the AIF pseudo op, in place of the AGO pseudo op, we do not need to mention any condition. Wherever we place the AGO pseudo op followed by a label, that simply means we are supposed to branch out to that particular level irrespective of any condition, right? So no condition is specified. It is similar to a go to instruction. This statement specifies the label of some other instruction in the macro definition. The macro processor jumps to the specified statement and continues sequential processing of instructions thereon, right? So wherever we specify the AGO statement, there is no need to check for any condition. It simply jumps to the mentioned label. It jumps to the instruction whose label is mentioned along with the AGO pseudo op. This is how it works, right? We are not going into examples of AGO pseudo op, but we are just supposed to know the details of it, right? Okay. So moving on, how can we conclude? Conditional expansion helps us modify the sequence of statements which are generated for a macro expansion. It helps us modify the sequence of statements which are generated for a macro expansion. How do we modify it? It is modified depending on the arguments, right, supplied in the macro invocation. Fine. A specific form of the previous statements can be this. We can modify the sequence of statements generated for a macro expansion or the macro definition. So using the same definition, we can generate a modified sequence of statements from the same definition. How? Depending on the arguments that are supplied in the macro call, depending on the number and type of arguments that we are supplying in the macro call. This is how conditional expansion works hand in hand by using argument values along with the AIF and AGO statements, right? So this was all about the conditional macro expansion facility, right? We will meet in the next lecture. Thank you.